Hi, everybody. I'm Joel Butterly. I'm the co-founder and CEO of InGenius Prep. Today, I'm answering the question, what were the three students whose applications most stood out to you and why? So I'll start by kind of addressing sort of the overall framework with which I look at applications. Fundamentally, standing out in the admissions process or having a successful application, it boils down to two primary variables. One of them is, are you academically qualified? Almost everybody knows about this variable. The point that they miss is that it's not so much a matter of being the best as it relates to academic credentials. It's about surpassing a particular threshold level beyond which you are considered academically qualified. So if you look at the probability of a student getting admitted, kind of plotted along, SAT scores or a GPA, what you find is that once you hit a certain level at a given school, all of a sudden the probability spikes considerably. That would be the sort of threshold level, meaning that once you're beyond it, you're academically qualified. For all intents and purposes, and this is a bit of an overgeneralization, the threshold tends to be at or near the 50th percentile of admitted students to that school, meaning that if you are there or higher, you are almost certainly considered academically qualified. But again, that's a bit of an oversimplification. So that's, are you academically qualified? Now, the second variable is kind of doing the heavy lifting here. And the reason that we know that is that at competitive schools, anywhere between 30 and 60% of the applicant pool, not people who are admitted, the actual applicant pool, are academically qualified to be admitted. That tells us, because there are only, maybe 1 in 5 to 1 in 10 individuals from that applicant pool who actually get in, it tells us that this second variable is doing, in fact, the heavy lifting. So what is the second variable? Second variable is, are you an expert at something? Another way of saying that would be, do you have a very well-developed passion? And another way of saying it would be, did you go farther with your passion than anyone else? All of these work, but fundamentally, that's what these schools are looking for. They're looking for individuals who are going to have a lot of impact in school, on campus, as alumni. And the individuals who are most likely to do that are individuals who have already taken their interests farther than everyone else at that age, right? So if I'm betting which of these students is going to go farther and make more of an impact, I'm going to select the students that have already done it, that have already gone farther. I'm not going to select the student that was president of a whole bunch of student groups that already existed when they got to school. That's a student who might take leadership roles, but might not actually leave any lasting impact at all. I've chosen 3 students. I'm sure I could choose many others. The reality is that all 3 of these students have one thing in common, and that's that all 3 of them were experts at something that they did. So the first one, his name is Dan. I'm changing the names. So these are not actually the names of the students. So this student's name is Dan. Dan was really interested in drama and psychology. He was from a good public school, California, probably in the top 10 percentile of his grade. Really a strong student. The school hadn't historically had very good admissions results at highly selective schools. Daniel had pretty high ambitions. He was interested in applying to, some of the most selective schools in the country. What really stood out to me about Daniel was that he started his own drama organization. At the school, it had roughly 50 members in it. It had faculty sponsorship. It also had like community events associated with it, so performances. He also had a nonprofit arm of this drama group, which was basically working with underprivileged students to express emotions through improvisation. So it's a really great idea and very helpful. And he worked with a lot of students that way, and got a lot of his peers to work with a lot of students as well. The student, Dan, also did a little bit of work with a professor, which is a theme that you'll hear about a lot. A lot of these top students have done something along those lines. He worked on a paper about the efficacy of drama therapy. So, how using drama to improve well-being of individuals with traumatic past experiences. In the end, he did very well. He got into both Yale and Stanford, and he ended up at Stanford. Our second student is Beau. Beau is quite different from Dan. Beau is an international student, very interested in tech entrepreneurship. He built an app that he worked on with a professor at Duke. The app was intended to help diagnose cancerous skin growths using machine learning algorithms. So that was very exciting. He didn't, and in the end, it didn't become like a commercially viable product, but it was extremely interesting that he had done it, that he'd written a white paper on it, and that he actually built an app as well. He spent a month on the West Bank, so Palestinian occupied territories, with a whole variety of startups there. So that was quite cool as well. He did a number of research experiences with different professors related to both tech and entrepreneurship, and ultimately published one of his papers as well in a peer-reviewed journal that is designed for high school students. So this is a student who's very clearly among the most advanced in sort of tech entrepreneurship for his age. It's obvious from what I've said. He's gone farther than other students. Lo and behold, he got into Yale. So that was great. And today, last I checked, he was founded an artificial intelligence startup in Silicon Valley. So third student, Amber. Amber, totally different from Beau, couldn't have been more different. Her area of specialty was medieval studies. She was a really good student. So she was like a top student, great, top grades, top test scores. She was interested in medieval studies, which is an extremely esoteric field, which my wife incidentally has a PhD in, which is why I feel comfortable saying that it's quite esoteric. She did a lot of personal research. She presented at student conferences. She arranged a student conference and called for papers for people to submit related to medieval studies generally and literature. She wrote a paper, published it, presented at professional conferences. So she was as advanced as you could be at that age. Oh, she also did translation work from Latin to English for professors. There's a lot of Latin translation in medieval studies, or at least some parts of it. So in any event, she was spectacular. Of the three, she was the one who was sort of like, obviously she's going to get into one of these hyper selective schools, because in addition to being crazy advanced in her particular area of interest, the area of interest was relatively obscure, which actually helps. It helps differentiate you from other students to have a more specific or less often discussed area of passion. And she also had incredible grades and test scores. She ended up getting into Harvard, which I believe is where she attended. But she was great as well. Okay, that's the three students that I think had the most impressive applications. I hope this was helpful, and whether or not it was helpful, you will hear from me again. Talk to you all very soon. Bye-bye.